and the ring she forgot in his bowl. People trust a locksmith in a way they don't trust a cop. Maybe it's the quiet. I arrive when doors don't obey, when keys have gone missing or hearts have. I carry a kit that looks like a violin case and a face I practiced in mirrors until it said, "I'm here to fix what you can't name." Most nights I'm a mechanic for panic. Other nights I'm a confessional with perfect hinges. My wife Inez always joked that I married doors to avoid people. She works in PR, a translator between disasters and donors. Her talent is making a scandal sound like a promise. Mine is making a lock listen. We were a good team. She opened rooms with words. I kept them from falling open when they shouldn't. For a long time, that felt like a marriage. The night everything leaned began with a rush job. Rain was stringing the city like beads. My phone buzzed with the kind of number that starts with money. "Loft on Vestry," the dispatcher said. "Client lost a key, says it's urgent. Famous. Keep the name quiet." I grabbed my case, kissed Inez where her neck meets her shoulder, and said I'd be an hour. "Don't drown," she murmured, not looking up from an event deck on her laptop, color blocks arranging themselves like weather systems. She wore my sweatshirt and no socks, nails red like a small emergency. I wanted to stay and tell her about a stubborn mortise I'd finally trained that afternoon. Instead, I let the door close carefully, the way you do when the person inside is sleeping, even if she's awake. Vestry Street at night feels like a secret wanting to be kept. The loft was the kind you only see from the inside if you are either rich or asked to fix something for someone who is. I buzzed. A voice answered with a sigh that had learned to be polite. "Up." When he opened the door, I knew him from 100 covers. Luca Morno, chef, owner, a man whose name was a password for reservations that didn't exist. He was dressed like the absence of effort. I've been in rooms with powerful men who announce it. He wore his power like a quiet watch. "Thanks for coming," he said, leading me into a kitchen that made my hands want to obey. "Key walked off. Happens." "Keys don't walk," I said, friendly. "They hitch rides." He smiled without agreeing. "Can you rekey tonight?" "I can make it forget who it trusted," I said, and got to work. The front door was a cylinder with ideas about itself. I took it apart like a conversation, slow and listening. While I laid pins on a blue cloth so I wouldn't lose them, I clocked the room the way you do when you fix something in a stranger's life. The iron bowl near the door for wallets and phones. A woman's scarf slung over a chair like a memory that hadn't chosen a side. A painting so good it didn't need to say anything. The bowl had a ring in it. Not just any ring. Gold, slim, a nick on the inside where a stone had once been reset because she'd snagged it on a sweater on our second winter. I'd found that nick with my thumb 1,000 nights while fumbling for her hand in the dark. Inez's ring. My mouth dried the way it does when the dentist asks you a question with both hands in your jaw. I kept working because that's what hands do when your heart trips. The cylinder clicked into its new opinion. "Try that," I said. Luca tested the key with the care of a man inspecting a wine he'd already decided to like. "Perfect," he said. "You do this long?" "All the time," I said. And he didn't hear the other meaning, which is good because I didn't either until later. He paid in cash, another quiet. He was polite and in a hurry the way men are when their schedules are designing them. As I packed, he glanced at the bowl, then me, and his eyes paused half a note too long. Not the ring, my noticing. The room grew edges. "Everything okay?" he asked, casual as an open window. "Locks are conversational," I said. "This one says, 'Don't leave your door ajar.'" We held each other's gaze just long enough to take inventory. Then I left with the knowledge a person can only unlearn by choosing not to. The rain felt colder. I walked 3 blocks with my case like it could anchor me. By the time I reached my truck, I had a plan I hated. I don't confront. Confrontation is a door you open without knowing if the frame was rotted. But I couldn't put her ring back in the bowl where it had made itself at home. I couldn't walk into our apartment and ask, "Did your finger go on vacation in someone else's entryway?" So I did what I do. I set a test. In my kit, there's a latch sensor I use for clients who want discreet alerts when a door is opened. It's small, stubborn, reliable, my favorite qualities in anything. I had a spare. When a door with the sensor opens, it pings the paired phone. You tell yourself you're listening to a property. You're really listening to your life. I went back to the loft the next day under the pretext of delivering spare keys. Assistants love extra keys. The door was quiet. The apartment smelled like coffee and hurry. No one answered, and I knew how to make a deadbolt consider cooperation. Inside, I touched nothing. I placed the sensor under the threshold, paired it to a number I keep for clients who care about not being seen, and left. On the way out, I looked at the bowl like it could answer. The ring was gone. People think betrayal is a thunderclap. Sometimes it's a dim notification at 11:03. The sensor pinged while Inez was in the bathroom brushing her teeth, music low, humming through foam. We were supposed to be in bed early for her event in the morning, a fundraiser that needed her shine. She came out smelling like mint and clean towels and kissed my temple like we were still 2 people without a third person's tableware. When she fell asleep, breath even, I lay next to her and watched the ceiling where faint city light paints a calendar of our nights. I waited for an explanation to arrive in my head like a delivery that missed our floor. Instead, I opened my phone and watched the sensor logs. 11:03, open. 1:56, close. A window of time wide enough to learn a stranger from the inside. I didn't sleep. At 5, Inez curled into me the way she used to before the phones learned our names. Her thigh fitted between mine. My hand found the small of her back like a compass that still worked. It would have been easy to pretend the sensor was a dream, that rain writes false logs. It would have been easy to forget her ring in someone else's bowl was a thing that happened to a different version of me. At 7, coffee. At 8, suits. At 9, she kissed me in the doorway, lipstick leaving a soft print on my lower lip. "It's just donors," she said. "They want to be told they're brave for opening their wallets." "You're good at making people brave," I said, and felt something like me dying a little. I don't know why I went to the fundraiser. A locksmith can slip into a hotel ballroom the way a sentence can slip into a lie. The place was a garden with a ceiling. Inez moved through the room like she was stirring it. People opened when she touched them. It's a rare gift. I stood at the back near the bar and watched her build a night from nothing. Luca was there. Of course he was. Men like him live in 3 rooms, kitchens, magazine spreads, and events where names emulsify with money. He saw her before he saw me. The look between them wasn't a glance, it was muscle memory. Not lust, the language of having been seen and wanting to be again. He was careful. He didn't approach her. He approached the circle next to her. That's how people like him enter rooms. Sideways until the orbit captures who they came for. When he finally circled close enough to speak, I stepped forward and introduced myself like an accident. "Luca," I said, hand out. "Thanks for calling me the other night." He took my hand like it was a phone he didn't want recorded. His eyes flickered to Inez and back. "You saved my evening." "Inez usually saves mine," I said, and she heard it like a draft she couldn't find the source of. "Your door should behave for you now." "It does," he said. "You're good." "Hours of practice," I said. "Doors, people." I smiled like I could mean three things at once, and he could pick the one that let him sleep later. We made small talk like cutting fruit precisely. Inese's smile was professional, then personal, then something I hadn't seen in months, scared. She excused herself to check on a seating chart that didn't need checking. Luca turned to me, voice low enough to pass for courtesy. Whatever you think you know. I know locks, I said, and habits. I kept my voice soft, a locksmith explaining where to a door. I also know my wife's ring. He breathed out through his nose, a man who understands knives. She's good, he said, almost admiring, at believing things will stay tidy. I'm not, I said, at this. This, he repeated, as if the word had a flavor. Do you want to hit me? No, I said. I want to hit a wall that looks like a story about us not talking when we should have. I rubbed my thumb and felt the ghost of the Nick the way some people feel weather before it changes. Do you love her? He didn't perform. I love heat, he said. With her, it's not the kind that burns down kitchens. It's the kind that makes the air taste like something. That's rare. And you. And I love my wife, he said, and let the quiet sit with us long enough to tell me he meant it, which is a particular kind of mess. Inez returned to us like someone aware of a lens. Gentlemen, she said, and made a joke about donors that landed because she makes them land. We were 3 points on a triangle that had grown legs. The night finished itself without another honest thing said. At home, she took off her heels in the hall the way she always did, one hand on the wall and one on my shoulder. That intimacy broke me a little. We stood in the kitchen with our hunger and our lies and the late hour, and I took her hand and turned it over. The ring was there. It always was when she came back to me. That's how you think of it when you don't let yourself count. I had a call on vestry, I said, because that was the only way to start. Her eyes didn't slide left, they stayed on mine, and I saw your ring, I said, heart going taut, in his bowl. She closed her eyes for a second like the word bowl was a prayer you could fail. When she opened them, tears hadn't arrived. I'm not sure whether I wanted them. I forgot it, she said. I took it off to wash my hands, it's soap. She tried to laugh. It landed like a glass on marble. And you went back, I said, because the censor didn't care about soap. At 11:03. Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened, grammar searching for sincerity. I've been lonely, she said softly. In this house with you, in every house without you. I tried to say it and it came out as a complaint about groceries. He looked at me like I hadn't already happened. For an hour sometimes I wanted to be a life that hadn't happened. There are conversations that arrive at a cliff and ask everybody to jump. This was one. Rage is simple. It's a sledgehammer you can lift even when your arms are shaking. I reached for it. Then I remembered how locks actually break. Slowly, pin by pin, until one day the key slides and nothing catches. I let the door open, I said, surprising both of us. I worked late and I didn't tell you about the interesting parts anymore. I stopped touching your wrist when I walked by. I started making every problem a mechanism. I forgot to make us a room. I should have told you, she said. I should have told me. Silence pulled up a chair. We didn't fill it with transcendence. We stood there in the kitchen like teenagers trying not to cry. I reached up and tucked hair behind her ear because my hand remembered before my head allowed it. She leaned into the palm like that was the proof all along. Do you want this to be over? I asked. Us. No, she said, as if the alternative cost too much oxygen. Do you? No, I said, but I can't climb back through a window pretending it's a door. She breathed, a shaky inhale that smelled like mint and something I couldn't have named in 1,000 years. What do we do? We end it, I said. You end it. I'll know if you don't. I didn't say how. She looked startled for a second and then relieved, the way you are when you realize the person who can hurt you also knows how to keep you safe. We tell the truth in small rooms where no one claps. We go to a stranger with a notepad and pay them to hold our guard while we put down our weapons. We say the ugly things without making them home Daker. And tonight, she whispered, voice frayed, do we sleep? We lie down, I said. Maybe sleep comes. We lay on our sides, facing each other, an inch of air becoming a language. She reached and traced a line down my forearm like she was reading me in Braille. Heat collected where her finger landed on my wrist. We kissed, not as proof but as punctuation. I'm here. So am I. We stopped before our bodies tried to write checks our forgiveness couldn't yet cash. It felt like building a doorframe. She ended it 2 days later, not with theater, with mercy. She didn't ask for his permission to choose me. I know because he texted me. People find numbers when they want to. Take care of her, he wrote. She deserves rooms with good air. I didn't reply. Some messages don't have a counter message. Some names get stored with no ringtone. Inez and I learned how to argue without lawyering. We spent Sundays with our phones in the microwave, not because we're paranoid, but because we love symbolism. The counselor told us repair is a verb you do with your hands. I liked that. It made me feel like the kit I carry could matter at home. I still fix doors for a living. I still walk into rooms at midnight where someone's life is hanging by a hinge. But now, sometimes, when a client asks me to make a door forget, I ask who they wanted to forgive. Last week a man called me, voice edgy, asked for an emergency rekey. My wife, he started, then didn't finish. I told him I was on my way. Before I left, Inez caught my wrist, kissed the place she'd traced the night we chose the hard thing. Be kind, she said, but come back. I did. I always do now. When our door closes, I listen to the way it sounds. A good door isn't silent. It thunks into its frame with a small confidence. It says, I belong here. I keep what I should. I let in what knocks right. Inez's ring shines again. We had the nick smoothed but not erased. I run my thumb over it sometimes like a scar you kiss for luck. At night, she still laughs like falling. I catch her. Sometimes I fall too. The bowl by our door holds keys and phones and candy wrappers. Nothing that belongs anywhere else. Nothing we forgot to take with us. And when the rain strings the city and my phone buzzes with an urgent number, I look at her and she nods and I go. Because the work of keeping is a job and the work of staying is another. We do both. We learned how to lock the door without locking each other out.